But without further delay, I'm going to start bringing on people for our next panel. First, we have the one and only not having a podcast at Pictureless. It's Yandy Eaton. Look at this garage.
Nick?
You've got purple today. You got
does it look purple? It's actually a blue light. But yes, I've been getting lots of comments on it.
It's the blue UV. I gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
You got hats set up. You have your Blake Snell blueprint.
Yep, that was a gift from you, by the way. Thank you so much.
I have it framed as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's glorious. If you don't know Yancy Eaton, I don't know what's wrong with you. Go follow him at Yancy Eaton on Twitter. It's pretty simple, straightforward. Not affiliated with anyone, just so you know. But of course, who better to talk about podcasts than, of course, the man who supports all of us inside this community listening to them. So thanks for being here, Yancy. I'm going to bring in Scott Bogman. Sorry, Steve Bogman.
What's up? Yeah, Steve. Steve, according to Nick, of course.
The best mistake I've ever made in my life, Bogman, because that means I got to hang out with you and Welsh.
That's right.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Excited to join this. We're not going to get as granular as the last segment, of course, but we are going to have fun. That's for sure.
Oh, that was a great segment. Really cool talking just stats and nerding out with them for a bit. But yeah, really excited to have you a part of this. Obviously, you've been doing In This League podcast with Chris Welch for a long time, and you know exactly what you're talking about. So really great to have your perspective with us. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Me and Yance haven't talked in a while. So
it's been a minute. It's been a minute. Yeah.
I'm excited to get to talking with him. That's going to be fun.
Nice. So we have the podcast manager here at Pictureless, Trevor Hooth. What's going on, Trevor?
Hi. So it's just this is when it starts going downhill in terms of
this is what
panel, right? Like the first two are great. Now it's just on the way down.
I was even thinking to myself, I should get something in before Hooth makes some detrimental comment about himself. I'm like, no self-deprecation, not for Trevor Hooth. He's fantastic.
I'm too quick, Nick. You're not going to beat me.
He's been on so many podcasts, so many different places. You can find his words and his podcast. So it's great to have you here. And as a podcast manager, man, you worked creating this podcast network that we have now, which is 20 plus shows because we're crazy. But they're all great.
Giving me credit. You're giving me credit. We have 20 plus teams of people who have put a lot of work into getting this podcast network off the ground. All I did was remind them that they're doing fantastic and they really don't need me.
Yeah, that's not true whatsoever. But one of those podcasts have Chris Webber, otherwise known as Schwebzy, with In the Deep with Jordan White. And how you doing, Schwebs?
Hi, friends. I like how Hooth mentioned how we started high and started going downhill, and then I was after him. So
it was. I was thinking as I was saying it. I'm like, Schwebzy's not out here yet.
So that's where we're at. That's where I'm at in the hierarchy here. So that's good to know.
Well, it's great having you. Obviously, it's In the Deep, but it's also tape measure takes as well. So I'm going to let you guys go at it. I can't wait to hear what your thoughts on how to make a great baseball podcast.
Thank God he's gone, right?
Thank God.
Finally.
We've been waiting.
What's up, guys? Thank you for joining me. I'm not going to be super polished like some of the other hosts and guests are. We're just going to have some fun talking about podcasts. Before we do start, I want to say very quickly, Bogman, you did mention it has been a minute since we've podcasted together. Years, in fact. You and the Welsh were the very first people outside of Dear Mr. Fantasy to invite me onto a podcast. So that was a very great experience. Wow. And I don't know if you remember this, but I get my time zones mixed up really badly. And I was actually late to the podcast. And my mortal fear is being late to anything. And so 6 years later, I just want to apologize. I still feel bad about it, making you guys wait for 30 minutes. I felt terrible.
I'm glad it's been on my mind for 6 straight years. So
yeah,
I'm really
obviously you're not over
it. Finally, apologize for it. I definitely didn't forget about it 5 minutes after it happened. It's been looming with me forever. So thank you for apologizing once again.
Yeah. While we have it to you, can you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, what you're working on, ITL, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, thanks, man. You can find all of my stuff at Bogman Sports on Twitter. The Welsh and I run In This League, where we do baseball, football, college football. The Welsh obviously is one of the best minor league guys in the game right now, and he does Prospect 1 there. So basketball mid-season right now, we do all that stuff over at patreon.com/ITL Army, and it's a lot of fun. So we more focused on entertainment and making people laugh. Obviously, we have a lot of good guests and a lot of good stats as well. But there's a million podcasts, so we try to make you laugh as well.
Perfect. I do want to hearken on some ways that you guys are different here in the very near future, but for now, we'll save that for the next segment. But Hooth, the Hooth is in the pudding. Trevor, how are you? Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you? And why am I leaning into the camera so much? Can you guys tell I'm like super self-conscious about being on the stream right now? Go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, your Twitter, what you're working on, and what your role is within the Pictureless community.
Yeah, first of all, Yancy, I just want to say that I'm honored that you wore a shirt for us. Last year I know PitchCon was a shirtless event for you, so I think we're all lucky for that. But you can find me in all of my work on Twitter at Hooth Trevor. It's the name that you see there, also right by my face. And I'm working with Prospects Live right now. We're working hard on our team boards. We're getting those rolled out. Bless you, boys. I cover the Tigers for them, and just released something today. And of course, I am the podcast manager at Pictureless. So been working hard behind the scenes trying to get everything set up to just to roll on the 6.0 launch. And I'm serious. Everybody was fantastic getting their podcasts out, and that includes Schwebzy.
Well, even Schwebzy. Wow. Okay. Schwebzy, why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, what you're working on, and again, kind of what your new role is within the Pictureless community.
So as you can see below, you can find me at Schwebzy on Twitter. It's actually really funny because I went by Schwebzy for so long that when I started changing my names on various things to Chris Webber, there was a long period of who. But no, this is my name, this is my face. So yeah, trying to get that out there, help the brand a little bit. You can find my podcast, Tape Measure Takes, which you can find on Twitter at Tape Measure Pod, and the new Pictureless podcast, In the Deep, which is In the Deep PL on Twitter. We're going to be tackling mostly deeper leagues and dynasty leagues on there, whereas on Tape Measure Takes, it's more up to the minute fantasy baseball news. And that's a particularly fun one because we record on Wednesdays, and for whatever reason, all the baseball news of the last year happened on Thursdays. So that was a really fun year of podcasting. But, yeah.
Yeah. Let me just say, your eyes absolutely pop in that lighting. Do you guys see this?
I've already seen a comment that said, "Damn, Schwebzy's fine." I'm like, he's gonna distract everybody from us. So
yeah,
he's over here looking like the Kool-Aid man in my red shirt. So
yeah, I turned off the Twitch chat. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to get distracted.
Now that you bring that up, that is a criticism I got last year whenever I interviewed Nick and Alex, was that I ignored the Twitch chat. And it's only because I had the Periscope chat up and I didn't realize that all the cool kids were on Twitch. So I will do my best to acknowledge you guys. I already see some comments here. The Hooth is in the pudding. That's correct, Miles. I do need to say hello to my mother because I did that last year. So JT, there you go. Anyways, we're going to try to rein this in just a little bit. So I'm really glad to have the three of you guys on because I think all four of us kind of have different backgrounds when it comes to podcasting and content creation. Bogman, I kind of went to you first just because you and the Welsh have been doing this for an extremely long time. When it comes to independent podcasts, I think you guys are one of the standard bearers when it comes to not only do you put out highly edited content consistently, like you guys never take off weeks. It's just amazing the amount of content that you guys produce. You do it for multiple sports, and you are one of the few podcasts that has a legit, at least Fantasy Centric has a legit Patreon following. I mean, the last time I checked, I think it was in like the multiple hundreds, 400 or 500. So you've shown that you're able to cultivate and kind of like breed this community, and the army is real and it's super sustainable. So I want to get some of your thoughts on that before we jump into some of the other questions. So basically, what is it like? Basically, starting from ground zero, and are there some lessons that you can teach us as far as what it's like to cultivate that type of community within the ITL Army?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is interaction. To build and keep a community is interaction, and honestly, a lot of what we do at this point is self-sustaining because we have the group me rooms, which is it's just like Discord. So if you're at that level on our Patreon, those guys talk to each other more than they talk to the Welsh and I, but you also have direct access. Those guys can DM us with any questions or comments, concerns, whatever. It is always good. But I mean, I also had a great partner to start with in the Welsh as far as, his background in radio, working in radio and all that stuff too. So, the audio quality at the very beginning was kind of hard to find ones that didn't sound like two dudes talking to each other through a green bean can with a string. You know what I mean? So to be able to start with good audio and learn how to edit, and learn how to build a show sheet and all that stuff. All those little things add up to, having your show become somewhat successful. And I would say we're still somewhat successful. Our Patreon is very good, but we're not the big dogs getting, 100,000 listens every show or anything like that. But, we enjoy what you do, have fun with it, try to be unique, try to be different. And also a big part of it is just having your shows come out consistently, same day of the week, try to be the same time, or at least if you're, putting them up late so that they're there in the morning for the people that want to listen to them. So, staying on schedule is a big part of becoming successful as well.
It's all about expectation, right? So your army knows that you guys aren't going to abandon them, that there's going to be content. So, I mean, you can get anybody to sign up for a Patreon once, but I've seen this so many times where people start doing it and they get burned out because they don't really have they don't have enough followers or Patreon supporters to justify the amount of work that they're putting into it. And so they get burnt out and then they stop. Or content creators who, they go super, super hard the first, 6 months or the first season of baseball, and then they stop. I was mentioning I was talking to Michael Govier, who you guys know from the Enrico Palazzo podcast. He has done a lot of podcasts and he's absolutely phenomenal. His trajectory is just a straight line. And he's absolutely fantastic. And like I was telling him, people are used to one podcast a week. That's kind of like the industry standard. Like if you're overextending yourself, absolutely take a day off and people aren't going to judge you for it. So kudos to you guys for just setting that expectation that you consistently put out content.
It's surprising that I have kept this relationship with so many listeners since I'm not good at regular relationships. So, it's just like any relationship, you keep it fresh, you add new stuff, but you keep the stuff that's also good. You scrap the stuff that you don't like. It's just like that.
Absolutely. So Trevor, he mentioned the Welsh having a background in radio. We were talking a little bit off air. Can you give us kind of the synopsis of what your entire career looks like as far as what you've done with, sports and writing and radio and all those things? Can you kind of just give us the elevator pitch?
Yeah, I'm 25, so the elevator pitch is like the whole thing, man. No, I kind of grew up in a radio household. I work in radio now. I've worked with the Mud Hens in the past, and I've been writing content since college. So it's just been something that I got into, and I really enjoy it, and I just kept trying to get better at it.
Mm-hmm. Is this what you want to be when you grow up?
Yes, I would love to. Like I said, I work in radio right now. I always say it's better than working for a living.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. And so currently you mentioned that you do have a job in radio. You don't have to be specific, or you can't be as specific as you'd like to be, but what exactly does that entail? What is your role? How does that, assimilate into your daily life? Is there a bleed over between the fantasy content and the baseball content that you do versus the radio content? What are some of those parallels?
There's no bleed over, but it has helped me in terms of when I do get to be on a podcast. I don't have my own podcast, but I'm just the podcast manager, and it's helped in terms of delivery. I think early on in my life I was a very flat talker. I didn't have any sort of inflection, and it matched my dry sense of humor pretty well. But now I inflect more naturally. I don't have to think about it. But what it really helped is in I was the production director for a couple years for a cluster of stations. So I was doing a lot of production, and that's kind of how I got more into the podcasting side, because I do more podcast editing, podcast producing type stuff. I do podcast stuff for Pictureless. Obviously I do it for Prospects Live. So that's kind of how I got my end into it. And then just because I also write content and don't enjoy having any free time, I get to be a guest on podcasts sometimes. So that's kind of how it's bled over, I guess, is that I was a production guy, and that's how I found my way towards the podcasting side of things.
Okay. I will say this as a current free agent. It's just like having a boat. Having a friend that has a boat is way better than actually buying and having to maintain a boat, just like with being on a podcast. I don't have an obligation. If I'm busy or if I can't do something, I just say no. So it's a lot more fun that way. But Schwebs, you have been remarkably like a very well-behaved child, just sitting there and waiting your turn, not interjecting at all. So let me go ahead and ask you this. You have your Tape Measure Takes podcast. I've listened to it a few times. Can you give us like the main spiel? I know you kind of talked about it a little bit at the start, but How did it come to be? What was the inception? What is the point of it? And I'll tag another question along is, what do you guys think that you do differently? Because you guys all know this. There are a million podcasts right now. And I think that the cream always rises to the top, obviously. Iron sharpens iron. I don't worry about, this flood of podcasts we have, because you see some really good ones and it makes everybody better. But what is your value proposition to the podcast world? And just kind of tell us about, what that looks like.
So I'm a big believer in the preparedness showing through. And I think that's what we bring to the table with Tape Measure Takes. It's like, we're never going to come into a podcast and come into a recording session with just, a few bullet points and we're just going to go off the cuff. This is something that, we've thought about and written about. Like there was a podcast I did recently. I did a guest spot with Justin Mason for Friends with Fantasy Benefits, name drop. And I
take a shot.
I must have written like 4,000 words, like prepping for that. And that was just like a guest spot. So it's like, there's never going to be a shortage of preparation. And I like to think that shows through in the final product.
Nice. Okay. So I sent you guys all an outline because I too like to be prepared. And obviously we're 20 minutes in and we've got 2 questions done. So I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. So very quickly, if this is kind of haphazard for you guys listening and it feels like it doesn't make any sense, that's because it doesn't. And there's a reason why I don't have my own podcast, because I don't know what I'm doing. So with that being said, why did you guys choose baseball content? And, for Bogman, you guys do multiple sports, but why did you decide that your creative outlet was going to be sports, / baseball? Bogman, you want to go first?
I think it's because it was my hobby. Fantasy sports was my hobby. I had just a regular, day job in a restaurant, and I was always staring at my phone, checking scores, checking stats, doing all that stuff, making pickups, being the annoying guy that gets the closer 2 seconds after he's announced that he's the new closer off the waiver wire, all that stuff. And you listen to podcasts for a while. There were plenty that I listened to before I started, and I was just like, I think I could probably do this. I think I'm pretty personable. I think that, so basically what the Welsh and I did was just take what we were talking about on the phone and start recording it. And that's basically how we did it. Obviously, like, Sexy Schwebsy over there said, there's way more work that goes into it than just getting on the phone and yapping. It's a lot like the iceberg, but I think that's why. It's something I was absolutely passionate about.
Okay. Trevor, you want to go ahead and jump on that as well?
Yeah, mine was more just, I didn't really do anything. I didn't have any other skills that I thought were marketable enough. I mean, it was a communication major in college. I mean,
you're so self-deprecating, man. Come on.
I work.
I'm sure you have other skills.
Seriously, I was a college baseball player, so it just made sense for me to, since I had that understanding of the game, to try to move it along, and that has less to do with podcasting, because early on I was just a writer. I got my start writing for Redbird Rants, the fan-sided Cardinals website, and so I was just like, this is fun. I was looking for something to do, and I didn't know what else I could do that could be fun, and I like baseball, so it worked out that way. And reviewing the brew. Thank you, David.
And Schwebsy, last.
I don't know what kind of content I would be creating. So I do a little bit of Twitch streaming, which is, if you're not aware, playing video games for a crowd of people, or in my case, like 3 people. I think if I wasn't doing this, I would have to spend time with my fiance, and like the only reason I say that is because I know she's watching from the next room. So hi Christine. No, I'd probably just be like, building an audience is a really fun thing for me. Building a community is a really fun thing for me. I've always been like, anytime I've played a video game or anything, it's always been like, I've always wanted to play in team-based or community-based games. And this was just a really fun route to take for that, because I'm hoping that the combination of the things I dabble in, the Twitch streaming, the podcasting, the Pictureless community participation, I'm hoping that all of that builds, and I get to like build a little fun community of my own someday.
Absolutely. All right, next question, guys. I'm not always going to respond to you guys' questions. It's not, or to your responses. It's not that they're not good. It's that I'm horrible at time management, and it's showing through today. What are some early criticisms you guys received when you first started podcasting? I'll give you a very quick example. Whenever I joined the Dear Mr. Fantasy podcast with Chris McBrien, I got an email, and it was basically talking about why is this 12-year-old boy allowed to be on a podcast? And they said some other things that were really kind of homophobic. I'll leave it up to the imagination, but this was my first piece of feedback I'd ever gotten from doing a podcast, and it almost discouraged me from not doing it. But Chris McBrien literally said, he's like, Yancy, he's like, that's because you struck a nerve with somebody and they took enough time out of their to respond to you. So you should take that as ammunition to keep doing it. And I did. And then I promptly quit the podcast, months later. But anyways, so Bogman, what are some criticisms you've gotten either when you started or something that you're actively working on? What does that progression look like? And what is something that you think that you do better now versus whenever you first started?
I think that a couple of the things that we have gotten complaints about are what make us sometimes. So a lot of it is get to the baseball, because the Welsh and I will spend 10 minutes BSing at the top, talking about our day or something, and we tend to go down the rabbit hole. We have topics to talk about every single time, but that's kind of what makes us is going down the rabbit hole on something, or maybe extending out one subject, you know what I mean? Which makes us different than other places that we got to hit all these bullet points. We got to, we're more river style and they're more grid style. You know what I mean? So some of that, also crutch words. And I think everyone has them when you're on a podcast and you're talking so much in a microphone, you can't not say, like, a minus so. I know Mason has talked about that as well. There are many, many crutch words that everybody has. I think those are the basic ones. But, the stuff that makes you Yancy, when you get an email like that, you just have to accept that you're not going to be for everyone. So if there is a criticism that there are many criticisms that you can take and go, okay, this is something that I need to work on because it's nice and constructive. And then there's the emails that you just throw away because that person just does not like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A trash person, a garbage person.
Yeah. That'll send you homophobic emails. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hooth, what about you? What are some criticisms you've gotten in radio and some of your writing that you've done? Just anything like that?
Yeah, mostly the biggest one that I got early on was talking too fast. And I think some of that might have just been, nerve the first time I'm getting out there doing it. You naturally talk a little faster, but early on, I really didn't look to find anything. I wasn't looking at comments on anything I did. I mean, I just wanted to put out the content and then just, run along with my life. And that was, I don't know if that was good or bad, to be honest with you, but it was just how I did it because I didn't care. I was just having fun. I really didn't think anybody was going to care what I had to say when I first started out. So I didn't bother reading, like, who's going to comment, who's reading it, And so as I got more serious about it towards the end of my college career, I started reading them and yeah, I don't take them to heart. So it's really hard for me to remember these, to be honest with you. But the most of them that I get are you're talking too fast, or my crutch word is absolutely. If I'm the hosting anything,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, like if I'm hosting anything and I ask somebody a question and I apparently in my head I don't know how to go to the next one, so I go absolutely, yeah. So so just stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And Schwebzy, what about you?
Oh, that's a good chain. Absolutely. Yeah. So just 3 in a row, three crutch words in a row. And it's funny because, like ending a sentence with and then starting the next one with so is mine. And I know that because I thankfully have a best friend who is absolutely vicious with his podcast reviews for me. And I need that. I want that because if I'm doing something that might be annoying or it just, it isn't to the level that I want, I want someone to tell me, and not everyone will. So I think it's good to have a truly evil and mean support system that will tell you when you're doing bad things.
I don't want that. I'm just saying, maybe I'm a sensitive Sally compared to you, but I don't want absolutely negative and brutal reviews. No, thank you.
I'm neurotic.
Keep it to yourself.
I'm constantly asking beforehand, or in the prep, like if the lighting is good, and apparently it is. Thank you for chat for reminding me of that constantly. And so some really good advice I received from the man to my right on my screen. Hooth told me about something he mentioned about himself about being monotone and making sure to inflect better and have more rises and falls to my sentences, because I definitely have a fallback tone where if I'm trying to like make my point, I just stay there and it's not exciting, and it needs to be more, I need to be more involved in my own speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. I say like a lot. I look around and I move. Like I'm on video right now and everybody keeps seeing me do this. I don't know why. I think it's just a nervous energy kind of thing. That's something I need to get better at, obviously. Let me ask you guys another question. Do you guys listen to any other fantasy baseball centric podcasts or baseball podcasts in general? Bogman, I know it's like super hard for you just because you guys produce so much content, but I mean, is there somebody else that you trust that you listen to regularly that every time it downloads, it's an immediate listen for you?
I don't have one that I listen to every single time anymore. And mainly the reason for that mainly is because I don't want to accidentally steal something. I don't want to accidentally steal points. The one that I listen to the most is probably Sleeper in the Bus. Yep. And then, I have a bunch. I'm subscribed to 1 million of them on my feeds. And if, when I'm going through and I see something that's, topical or I want to listen to or catch up on, I'll listen to it. You know what I mean? So I kind of go like that. Like you said, we're doing 8 million podcasts. So, it's kind of hard to find time to listen to stuff anymore. But yeah, there are definitely some I listen to. And, if I hear a good point, then, I like to credit where I heard it, so that's how and I think I just, sewed about 3-4 times there, but that's how I like to incorporate my listening now, is kind of, to stay afloat, to stay with everything, and kind of, see what's going on with other podcasts that I can, bring to us, ITL. Okay.
Hooth, what about you? Any podcasts?
We're all going to be so self-conscious about our crutch words now that we talked about them. We should have done that at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
That's my bad. I brought it up. My bad.
I have about 20 plus podcasts that I'm listening to now pretty regularly. It's the Pictureless Podcast Network.
Hey.
No, I really. There you go, Schwebsy. Thank you. Thank you. But I lost my train of thought because Schwebsy showed us his shirt. I don't know what that was.
Go-to podcast that you listen to.
Yeah, no, I don't listen to any regularly or religiously or anything. I like listening to them. I'm going to listen to these 20 plus regularly. I listen to the Prospects Live ones regularly, but most of that is just to spark the conversation with those guys and ask them questions, because realistically, when I listen to podcasts, when I read anything, I'm trying to learn something. And that could be learn something about how I can be better when I'm on podcasts, or how my writing can be better, or just something new about the game. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Okay. And Schwebsy, what about you?
I want to listen to a lot more podcasts than I actually do. My old habit was listening to podcasts while I commute, and now there's no more commuting, so I don't really listen to as many podcasts. The one that I used to listen to most frequently was Sleeper in the Bust, and
I've heard of
course, of course, Nick and Alex love to listen to them talk about literally anything. And I think the one podcast that I wish I listened to more was Rates and Barrels, because I love everything Eno has ever done, and I should make more time for him in my life. But
voice.
Yeah, that's I think that's it for me with what I consume.
There's a couple podcasts that I like that have come up relatively recently. I'll give you guys 3 examples. And the reason why I like them so much is because one of my pet peeves with podcasts is, and this isn't me taking shots at anybody, this is just kind of an observation, and what do I know? I don't even have a podcast. Is every baseball podcast, they cover all of the news points as if they are the only podcast that you are ever going to listen to, right? So when JT Realmuto signs, every single podcast is going to give you their thoughts on JT Realmuto, or name anybody. Fernando Tatis. Every single fantasy podcast I listen to is going to talk about Fernando Tatis, and it kind of gets tired. I do, however, really appreciate these podcasts that go out of their way to do something different. ITL is a great example. Even with whenever you guys did like the 99 player debates, I know you guys kind of said you were done doing that, but I loved it because it was 2 players, and completely different players, but you guys really went in on it. And most of your audio content is just like that too. It's just different. You go down rabbit holes, you go down tangents, what have you. So can you guys think of like an example of, something like this where, what is something that you're trying to do that's different in any of the content that you guys do? What is something that makes you guys stand out? What is something, we mentioned this a little bit of just how in depth you guys go, but what is that defining feature? 3 examples that I was going to give you the Triple Play podcast, the Enrico Palazzo podcast, and the Dingers podcast. 2 of those I've been on. The 3rd one I'm going to be on soon, but these guys are like, they're trying. They're really, really different. They're making songs. They're making special segments. They're making puns. They're doing segments that we've never seen before, and they're not just talking about add this player or drop that player. So basically, like Schwebzy, I'll start with you this time. Is there something specific that you are working on, or you have in the works, or that maybe you don't want to talk about it, but here I am bringing it up. But how are you planning on being different and standing out in the crowd with your podcast?
So this is actually something that I really struggle with when doing like the planning of the podcast. It's because every time that I kind of venture off the beaten path, I always think no one wants to listen to this, but people do. People want unique, and if people are listening to you, it's because they want to listen to what you bring to the table. But I really struggle with actually like then putting that on paper, even though I kind of realize it. Because between my 2 podcasts, we've got 3 really unique point of views and senses of humor, and that stuff really does need to come through in order to stand out from the crowd. So that's something that I'm really working on and trying to get to more and access more.
Hooth, what about you? What is with your role at Pictureless, what is something that you're looking for as far as what is the defining feature of a podcast? What makes it click for them? Examples of how some of these podcasts within your network are doing something different.
The biggest thing that I've in setting this up, I got a lot of messages from people who are saying that like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this podcast. Like it's not going to be rates and barrels. It's not going to be on the corner or whatever. And my response was always like, it doesn't have to be. And that's kind of what my main thing is right now with all of these podcasts is I want them to make it their own thing, because they're different people than anybody else who runs any other podcast. Like each podcast should be different, should be unique, and run their own way. So one of the things I think I've said to every single podcast at least once is, this is your show. Like I get that I'm technically the podcast manager. I'm here for help. I'm here for anything you might need, but like, this is your show. I want you guys to make this you, because that's how people are going to enjoy it. I think the other phrase I used most of the time is, your podcasting, it's a conversation you're having with the people in your podcast that you're inviting people in on. So like, you need to have that conversation. It needs to be you. It can't just be something that you think people want to hear, because they want to hear you. That's why they clicked on this podcast. That's why they're listening to it.
Yeah. Wow. That went way better than I thought. Nice job, Hooth.
For us, I mean, Hooth just hit the point. It's like I said before, it's what we're doing a lot is basically the Welsh and I's phone conversations. You know what I mean? So I think a lot in movie and TV quotes, which is why our mock drafts are fairly popular. They're a pain in the ass to make, because we have to record them for an hour, then I have to go back and drop in the clips and all that stuff when we're done. But that's something that I love doing. That's kind of like I'm terrible at writing or drawing or painting. That's my art right there, is dropping in dumb quotes into our mock draft. So that's what makes those fun. And just being able to go down a rabbit hole, like Schwebs, you mentioned before. You have bullet points to talk about, but you don't want to specifically, we got to hit every single thing on here. You know what I mean? So be willing to kind of let the path take you where you're going to go sometimes. I think that's, and I think Hooth answered this perfectly. It's let people in on your own personal thing. Don't make it specifically for anyone else. Make it for you and hope other people enjoy it.
This is going so much better than I thought. What a relief. My God.
I just want to point out that the comments have become just a competition of who can make the best pun with my last name.
I mean, the Hooth is in the pudding. That's all I'll say. All right, I'm going to ask you guys, we're going to do a little bit of rapid fire, okay, because I'm taking entirely too long to get through some of these questions. Very quickly, I just want to get a yes or no from you guys all at once, okay? Do you guys use a show outline for your podcast?
Yes.
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 I definitely encourage them.
Every
Absolutely.
time. Okay, cool. Do you guys ever use handwritten notes, or do you type up notes for yourself to where you have something in front of you whenever you guys are recording?
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time?
I've always got it on a secondary monitor. Yeah.
Okay.
I handwrite all my notes.
What is one, well, this one we'll do very quickly. What is one lesson in 10 words or from podcasting? I'll give you, everybody tells me that they lost an episode, right? They lost a recording, they had a guest on, whatever. What is one lesson that you have learned? Bogman?
Yeah, I think hit record is the biggest one. You know what I mean? We've all done that before. That's part of losing those episodes. So yeah, hit record. Make sure everything's going good.
Okay, Hooth?
I'm going to take a page from Schwebzy's book. Never think you have enough notes.
Okay. And Schwebs?
Redundancy, and that's kind of related to the hit record. Like just last night, we didn't have it set up the way we wanted to. We realized after the recording, so it was a good thing we had a secondary source recording it.
Yeah. Okay. Bogman, this question's just for you, just because, like I said, from a longevity standpoint, you've been doing this forever. What does the process look like whenever you're trying to get somebody on the show? What is that whole dialogue? If somebody's listening to this and they have never had a guest come on, what does that process look like to you? How do you make it happen?
Yeah, usually, you find an email, maybe they're following you on Twitter, whatever it is. So I either send an email or I'll send a direct message on Twitter and say, hey, we're looking to have you on as a guest. We're going to be talking about X, Y, or Z. These are the times that we, in general, record. These are the times we can record. What works best for you? So that's usually the kind of the outline of the email that I send to guests.
How do you handle whenever somebody says no?
You just try to make it work another time, or understand that they're busy and it's probably just not going to work right now. So you just kind of have to accept it. There's nothing you can, there's no repercussions, or there's nothing you can do. So you just kind of go with the flow.
All right. So for all three of you, are there any applications, hosting services, any type of equipment, podcast equipment that you guys have used before that you have had a bad experience with, that you could kind of alert those out there, those aspiring podcasters, to not waste your time with? If you have anything, just jump in with it. I know that's kind of a random question.
I mean, Skype has always had issues. I think Skype usually provides the best audio. We use StreamYard a lot now, which is what we're using for this. So I think that's probably the best. For audio only, Skype is probably the best, but there are big hiccups with Skype, I know, because call recorders are tough. That's how you lose shows, is those apps being screwy, and most of them on Skype are. Okay.
Hooth?
I'd say just from the editing side, I didn't know this until I got Adobe Audition to edit stuff, but I don't personally love Audacity at all. I know that gets used a lot, but as soon as I got Adobe Audition, I was like, oh, this is better.
Yeah. Schwabzy?
For me, I just don't trust anything that does that only leaves you with one audio recording. Like I have just stepped away from anything like that, and now I just do local recordings on both sides.
Okay. I will second the Skype thing. I have had to completely start over, and I lost all my Skype contacts multiple times. Like I literally had 150 podcast people, and I lost it. And every time you go to record,
not forget your password.
Don't forget your password. You're screwed.
They need your dental records and your blood type and your firstborn child and all that stuff to get.
And they also decide to update Skype the second that you go to record a podcast. Yeah. That is the worst. Okay, that was pretty good. Have you guys ever had any creative differences with somebody that you were working with, whether it be a podcast, writing content, radio, anything like that? I mean, Bogman, I know you guys have had to have over the years.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. Yeah, the Welsh and I will, usually what it is. I have an idea, or Chris has an idea, and then we bounce it off each other to make it what we both think is going to be good enough. So 95% of the creative differences we come to work to an agreement on, but there's always going to be some. And if who you're working with really wants to try something new, you got to let them try it, and that's kind of how it goes. You let them try it, and then either you go, that works, and I didn't think it was, that's a great idea, or I told you so. And who doesn't like saying I told you so? Everybody loves saying that. So sometimes you gotta try things and let them fail.
Okay. Schwabsy?
I mean, Jordan and I nearly came to blows over Austin Riley versus JD Davis, but and then,
there is a right answer to that, by the way. There absolutely is a right answer.
There is, and he's in Queens. But and then as for me and Rai Rai, I mentioned earlier, like Rai Rai is a hot take machine, but it's nice that if I ever come to him with a fact-based argument that disputes his hot take, he's just like, okay. So I not really, I guess is the answer.
Okay. And Hooth, what about you?
I'm just way too easygoing for that. If there's a creative difference, I'm willing to explain why I think what I think, and then if they want to go with what they think, I just kind of sit back and say, I mean, unless it's like ultimately detrimental, like then, but I've never had that happen. So I'm just sit back and go, all right, let's just roll with it.
Okay.
And most of my creative differences are the Welsh volunteering me for stuff that I didn't volunteer for at all, and then I probably wind up doing them. So the most recent one is the mascots one. I said one fact about a mascot, and apparently I'm in love with mascots now. And he said, if we get this amount of people on Patreon in January, you have to do a mascot series for the season, and I'm on the hook. So you will all be hearing about mascots from me during the season. So
yeah,
starting out with.
What is the new thing? What is the new Carl's Jr. thing? Because I was worried about
I'm
you.
I'm done with that.
For those who don't know the reference, after every Arizona Diamondbacks loss, you were ordering, what was it? What exactly was it?
Well, see, that was the thing, was people were getting mad at me. They're like, you're going to die. You're going to kill yourself eating Carl's Jr. every day after the Diamondbacks lost. And I was going to Carl's Jr. every day, but I wasn't eating a full meal there every single time. I'd order like some fries. I'd make my stupid video, and then I'd go across the street, get a salad. You know what I mean? Like, you can't actually eat Carl's Jr. every single day. I mean, I probably got other stuff besides salads. I'm not exactly skinny, but you know, it was a lot. And then last year I was trying to do the miles for everyone they lost by, and eventually that fell off because I am a fatty, and I'm just like, I'm not doing anything based on the Diamondbacks again this year. I'm done with that bit. We're gonna stick with the mascots. That's what we're doing. Okay.
I'm gonna very quickly. I want to get some answers as far as what types of equipment you guys use. Okay, so the whole. Our whole panel is talking about what makes a good podcast. So obviously you guys have to use equipment. As I sit here, I'm on my 11-year-old Mac, and I'm using $8 earbuds that I got from Walmart. I do, however, have a mic, which is about as expensive of a setup as you could possibly get for me. But I see you guys all have different headphones and headsets, and super nice mics that are on stands and stuff, pop filters and what have you. We'll start with Hooth this time because I don't think we started with you first at all. What type of setups do you use whenever you do record? Can you give me, like 3 or 4 little specific things, programs, what types of mics, that type of thing for people listening at home?
Yeah, well, not many specifics. Sometimes if I am in a pinch, I use my nice work microphone, and that sounds fantastic. This is the setup I have most of the time, this little headset, because I mentioned earlier my parents work in radio, my dad works in radio, and I said, Dad, I need to get a nice microphone or something so I can do podcasts and not sound like I'm coming through headphones. He said, no problem. I'll just send you what I use for my people who, when they can't be at work and they have to do their show from home. So he sent me this, and this is what I've had since then. So this is kind of it. But other than that, again, I can't recommend Adobe Audition enough if you're going to be editing podcasts on the back end.
That's what I used to.
So much easier. It really has. So other than that, no, it's just, for me, it's just a computer. A lot of times I record on StreamYard when I am hosting. Sometimes I host podcasts for Prospects Live. So mostly just StreamYard, this nice little headset, and Adobe Audition, and I'm good to go.
Okay. Shubsy?
So if I actually care about what's going into my ears, then I use the Sony MDR 1000Xs. They're noise canceling, so it blocks everything out. But I really, I think as far as like listening while you're recording, I don't think it's as important, because the audio quality, like while it's going on, isn't super important. It's what the end product is. And then my microphone is a Blue Snowball, which is, from what I understand, a pretty popular like entry level kind of thing. I believe I'm going to be upgrading soon now that this is becoming more of a thing in my life. And I thought it was it was funny when Hooth trashed what was it, Audacity before, because that is what I use for audio editing. So
okay, I wasn't trashing it.
I need to get into the Adobe Creative Cloud, clearly.
Just to acknowledge a couple comments in the chat, because I appreciate everybody that is railing us in the chat. It's a lot nicer than last year. I think it's because Sammy and Alex Chamberlain aren't in the chat. Spore's not in here either, and they roast me. They absolutely eviscerated me last year.
They didn't like your stripper lights? Did you have these stripper lights last year?
I did not, but I was topless.
Oh, okay.
I was topless. Yeah. Very quickly, Chris from Baseball Pods, he says respectful conflict is excellent content. I do agree. It's just as long as you're respectful and you're not denigrating other people.
Yes.
I don't like podcasts where like they're taking shots at people that aren't even on the podcast, even if it's a baseball player or just another podcast or what have you. Mikey Ahedo asks, Yancy, what's your background on your Mac? I don't know what that means. Oh wait, I do know what that means. It was actually Mikey Ahedo. My wife put it on while I was sleeping. It's a picture of Mikey, like the Alex Rodriguez, like looking at himself in the mirror. My wife put that on there. Very quickly, DVR said it's actually very helpful to work with people with some level of creative differences. I think it helps reduce staleness with a show, and it forces you to take occasional risks that you would not have taken if you had 100% control.
The Welsh and I are doing something new pretty soon here. We're going to call it the Mystery Science Draft 3000, where we're going to do a mock draft like we usually do, but we're not going to be involved in it, and we're just going to roast everyone's picks.
I love this.
Yeah.
Just as long as everybody's cool with it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the people that sign up for the league are going to know what is happening. So
that's
they'll
the
all
way
be
to do
cool
it.
with it. Yeah.
All right, I just got a notice from Nick. He said, I will jump into this at 5:55, which sounds like a threat. We still have a bunch of questions, so let's try to speed this up very quickly. So what do you guys, very quickly, very quickly, what do you guys think is next for podcasting? I've seen an explosion of live streams and video content. To me, I think it's so much more immersive to see people's mannerisms, how they react, their facial expressions. It's just a completely different ball game for me. Where do you guys see that kind of heading in the next 3 to 5 years? Will it be video first and then audio secondary? Or, what does that look like, and how do you guys plan on adapting to it? Shwebzy, you want to go real quick?
So I'm going to tie this into the next question a little bit. The video content is massive. Like you mentioned Michael Govier earlier, and what he does with the Palazzo cast and like the hype videos that he does is some next level stuff, and something that I would really like to draw some inspiration from. Like I've taken to recording video from all of our podcasts to try to like find, some gems and use that for like advertising hype videos throughout the week. Mm-hmm. And I do see more, I see more merging of different types of platforms. Like I see like podcasts popping up on YouTube more often in the future. I do think you're going to see a lot more blurred lines between content and platforms.
Okay. Bogman?
Yeah, I mean, I think Shwebzy's definitely right there, and I think that during the pandemic and lockdown and all that stuff, I started watching podcasts on YouTube, and it became more of my normal routine. I was obviously driving less and at home more, so instead of driving, we've mentioned before, which is when my podcast listening kind of went down, and I think it went down for everyone. I mean, I think everyone's numbers took a hit during the pandemic because more people were watching Netflix and stuff and watching stuff on YouTube. So I think we all kind of follow Joe Rogan's lead, right? I mean, every podcaster, he's at the top of podcasting, and then it's down. So, whether it be clips cut out and put on YouTube or put on social media or wherever they are, I think that's a big part of it. But I think it's probably going to be 50-50, where you're getting half your audience from video and half your audience from, video. Audio and video are going to kind of be halved. So I think that's going to be a big part of it.
Okay. And Hooth?
Yeah, they're both right. All I can add to this conversation is that even when the pandemic started, I kind of started my own video stream that I called Hooth's on First, that I did like 4 times and then go back to periodically since then. So consistency, not great with me, but I think video is going to be a huge thing.
Your name is just so pun friendly. Like I like to joke around and say like I have like an Only Yance account, and I'm making a podcast that's called Eaton Asks, which is you can. I don't even know what the point of me saying that was, but we are running out of time. Very quickly, do either of you guys have a dream guest that you would love to have on a podcast? Hooth?
Oh, that's a tough question.
It was in the outline.
It was in the outline. I wasn't prepared.
Not to catch you off guard.
I read it in the outline too. I can't really. I don't know, because I don't really have a podcast. I just have a group of 20 of them that I'm overseeing. So I don't know if I have a good answer to that because I don't have a platform for them.
Who's your dream guest to get on all 20 Pictureless podcasts?
Yeah.
I would love to be on all 20 Pictureless podcasts myself. I have no idea.
My dream guest is Yancy Eaton if he shows up on time. That's what my dream guest is. So we've had him before, but he just never shows up when he's supposed to. So that's really I don't think I have one, to be honest. A dream guest. The next guest that I get on, that's my dream guest.
Yeah. What about you, Schwebs?
So I thought that Yancy was like a can't miss guest, but here he is with a shirt on and no banana behind him, and I'm like, why is he even here now? No,
that's a deep cut. I'm actually really surprised you remembered the banana. Everybody thought that was so funny. It was just my lunch.
Can I get like some banana remembrance in the chat? Like, people remember this, right? That's not just me. But I think my actual real dream guest is probably Eno. I mentioned, like, I literally subscribed to The Athletic just for Eno, and I remember his time at Fangraphs really fondly. Like, he's, I don't know, I don't want to say hero because like that's like really elevated for a fantasy baseball analyst, but he's definitely someone I really admire in the fantasy community.
Okay. We're up against the clock. Nick's going to come in here and ruin everything in like 3 minutes.
Oh no, Dad's awake.
Very quickly. So I'm trying to read some of the comments and they're going so fast. Ben Brown says, Banana Yancy and Mohawk Nick, rest in peace, PitchCon 1.0. Baseball Pods, Chris says, there never was a banana, which I'll let you guys take what you want with that.
That's deep.
Very lastly, so I did mention if there was a guest that you guys wanted to come on, I would love to go on Fresh Air with NPR, and I would have Terry Gross interview me. That sounds like a joke. It's not. I love Terry Gross. I think she's just a queen, and I don't think she gets enough credit as being just a fantastic interviewer, and she always gets a lot out of people. She is kind of uncomfortable when it comes to like adult themes of like violence and sexuality, and that's something that she's always kind of grappled with. I think there was like, I don't really know why, but I think she's just a fantastic interviewer. Last time, Nick's still not here, so I'm trying to.
You're trying to pad until Dad shows up? Is that what you're doing?
No, it's not like I'm padding. Okay. I skipped a couple.
Okay, fine. All right, Dad has showed up.
Daddy's home.
How do we boot out the guy who's running the stream? Can we do that? Where's that button?
Oh man,
Fun's gone.
I want to say a couple things really quickly. One, Audacity is great because it's free, and you can still do a lot of things.
Okay, can I clear this up? I wasn't saying Audacity is
Hooth
bad.
hates Audacity.
If you know how to use it, it's great. You can make macros. You can quickly apply all the compression and normalization that you want, the EQ in like one click, and you just let it sit there and it's done.
Sure,
it's really easy.
Audition, in my opinion, is just better. That's all I was saying.
Sure, it costs money.
Look, if you have one takeaway from this panel, it's that.
So I want to say really quickly, when Hooth and I were going through the Pictureless podcast, now we're going to talking to everybody and giving some feedback. There were some consistent things that we were saying to everybody. One was audio quality is the most important thing. Like if you hear,
you can make the best points, but if they sound like crap, no one's
right. And you sound fantastic, Bogman.
Oh, thank you.
So then I deal with all your things that you say are crap. It doesn't matter. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you say the best things. But right, audio quality is so important. And test your mic. Like if I go really close to it, I'm going to sound differently than if I'm far away like this, right? Like it makes a difference, and actually take the moment to do that, because that's what you're sending off to everybody, is how you sound, and that's it.
Nick, very quickly, very quickly, how much was your mic, and what is the model for it, in case people are curious?
This is an SM7B. This is
Him
like
and the Welsh were nerding out about it the other day.
Yeah. So there's also an RE20 back there. You don't need to get those though. You should probably get something like Blue Yeti, used for ages. That's about $80 or so, 80 to 100. That's probably the one I recommend the most. And make sure just talk into it the right way. You talk into this side right here. Don't talk to the top. Don't go to the other side. Actually test your mic and play around with that stuff. So that's the major thing about listening to yourself, is just seeing how you actually sound when you go around the mic. You can actually tell that you sound different. So really, really do that. The other thing is just embellish. Like, no one wants to hear a podcast where I'm just like this the entire time and I'm just talking normally. Who cares? But if you get really excited and then you pull it down or not, it's actually way more interesting. You want to hear that podcast? I'll make it just for you, Hooth.
I want you and Fast on the next On the Corner to do that the entire time.
Oh man, but there's just things like that. Oh, I love what you guys said, Hooth, Schwebs, about like just you're only as good as your notes. You know, I cannot like the notes that I've had with Fast over the years. Oh man, they were massive. Those notes, and that's just absurdly helpful. But yeah, I mean, Bogman, you were talking about it like, you know, personality and going off the cuff and being you. 100%. I love tangents. It makes it interesting. Yance made a great point about like everyone does the same news. Just talk about like whatever you want to talk about. Go into you.
How is it different?
Because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to do this stuff often if you're feeling like you have to be something that you're not. Just go. Just like be unique, because what you are is unique inherently. And don't try and be the staple, the copy, whatever. Just go do things that you think are fun, and you'll find
Nick, not to cut you off. With you.
Yeah,
not to cut.
Yeah,
do this like literally all the time, and this is like my one shot. I'm just kidding. DVR says, yes, listen to what Nick is saying right now about mic positioning. Listen, I am guilty of this too. I say this as I'm like literally mouthing my mic like from the top. For some reason, it feels wrong to me to be down like this and actually talking into it. So that's actually kind of interesting.
That depends on the mic too. Like even the Blue Yeti that Nick was showing, there's settings for it. Like you can move it up like this and switch the settings so it's going to hear more people, or you do the Pac-Man one, right, is the one that you want, so that that it filters all the sound into one point.
Absolutely, test it out completely. Also, yeah, Yancy, what you mentioned about segments. Segments are the best. It's like actually interesting and different.
Yep.
And just try to be different as a podcast, because again, I mean, there's so many, and the more that you can be different than just talk about this other guy that has, you know, you're just reciting the same stats as everyone else from Fangraphs or something. Like why would they listen to yours as opposed to someone else, right?
I used to be very guilty of that. I used to just regurgitate what stats, and that there's no narrative, there's no context, there's no actionable advice there. Anybody can go to fangraphs.com. It's free, you know.
And the very, very last thing I would suggest is, for your first podcast, just get into the podcast. Just like go into it. Don't introduce it so long. Don't like spend 3-4 minutes talking about the background of it. Just do the podcast, because
you can always do a
seconds.
Test podcast too. You can always fire one up and do your first podcast, see what it sounds like, and see if you like that, or if you want to start over. You know what I mean?
Oh man! By the way, I get King Hippo saying Bob Nightingale just put out a tweet. Trevor Hooth loves Audacity. That is amazing.
I'm having such a good time right now, guys. The best time.
Also, DVR just said I sounded better when I ducked down like this. I feel so seen. Oh my god. So yeah, that's how you don't make a good podcast, everybody. Thank you so much.
Oh man, but
DVR is too nice to dunk on me, but he basically just dunked on me.
The very last thing I will say, obviously, like, yeah, I've screwed up so many podcasts. I didn't get the Gallon one. I made Sport, I think, do 2 in a row with me actually 3 in a row, because I messed up the first 2, which is hilarious. But essentially, I had it and I just completely forgot, because I was just remembering the trauma of missing that Gallon thing.
That was like when we started, and Yancy was like, "I'm sorry for being late 6 years ago when you guys when you guys had me on." I'm like, "Yeah, I haven't gotten over it either." So,
podcasting trauma.
Yeah.
Right? I can't remember.
Very quickly before we do leave, Nick, I do want to say thank you for allowing me to do this. Every single time you invite me onto things, I feel like a Make-A-Wish recipient. Like, I don't know why people keep inviting me on things, but here we are. Doesn't make any sense.
Everyone in this entire community wants more of you to do things.
That is not true. That is not
anyone
true.
that is any brain wants that.
Absolutely.
They want you to get better internet first, but after that, you should do more stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But looks like we have another minute or two, as the next person hasn't arrived yet.
Oh
no.
Who's after?
2 hours? You guys want to do another hour?
I can't. Yancy mentioned it before. I have another podcast to record 15 minutes.
So the very last point that I remember now is you got to be consistent with them. You can't just like do it and then not do it again. Like, it has to be something that you're going to be bad at first. It's how it is with everything. And you just got to keep doing them. You will get better as you continue doing podcasts. Just like go and put it out there. It's not going to be perfect the first time. Don't listen to the first one we have. We actually don't have that one public anymore. So I'm really happy you can't listen to the first On the Corner.
Coward.
But I even have a photo of that first one. You can tweet at me, ask for it. Like, I have a photo of Fast and me recording our first one in his little alleyway, or really like right in front of the front door, because we didn't want to be by the window where it was super loud from New York. And like, it's a terrible setup, but we did it. We did our first podcast, whatever.
Thanks.
So if you're thinking about doing, just start doing it and just have fun with it. And that's
and
all I
don't knock
got.
over guitars in the background while you're recording.
Oh man,
That's a big piece of
was that Epiphone or a Gibson? I gotta know if it was that. Oh,
I think it was Rawlings.
Rawlings Les Paul. That's great.
Hey, Hooth, CBM Reeves in the chat says, I want to hear Hooth compliment himself.
Yes,
All right,
me
so
too.
Okay, but here's the thing. We were just talking about like this whole thing about how you have to be yourself and, you know, people are interested in you. And clearly that's not a part of my my personality.
anything to get out of it, Hooth. Oh, that's great.
Trevor Hooth is amazing, and he'll be the last one to tell you, unfortunately, but he is fantastic, and I'm very lucky to work with him.
He's very
all right,
unfortunate that he promoted me.
It's 6:01. I'm not gonna. All right, he's here, so we're gonna do this. This was great. Thank you guys so much for being a part of it. Yancy, Bogman, Hooth, Weber, you guys are fantastic. Thanks a lot for being a part of this. That was a fantastic panel. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Nick.
See you.
Bye.